women who have gone before me in construction who I think, wow, I can't believe they did that. And the good news is I don't have a lot of fear, so sometimes I just pick up the phone and I call those people and I say, hey, I see what you're doing. I'm a little bit behind in the curve from you. Do you have any words of wisdom, or maybe we could work together? So I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to meet role models and then to hopefully then mentor others behind me.
So you mentioned working in construction. How is it working in a type of field as a business owner, in a field that tends to be traditionally dominated by men? How has that affected your relationships with other members of the construction community, people working for you and people working with you?
You know, I think the first few years, it was really noticeable and really challenging, and in particular, being a woman in construction, because people didn't know who I was. They didn't understand my drive and commitment to being a growing business, how much I had prepared myself through all of my work in business and in accounting. But also, I had convinced my husband to quit his job and come work with me. So here I am, a woman with a construction company, and my husband works with me. So everyone assumed, and this is what's funny, is that it caught both my husband and I by surprise. But people assumed that it was his company and I worked for him. And maybe I kept the books, maybe I did the payroll. And they would ask me things. These were people in our neighborhood and in our community and clients we were trying to sell to. And they would ask me how long I had been working for him and when did he start the business and do I work full time? They would ask these really strange questions. And I guess the funny part of it was how surprised I was. Like, why would they think that? And he was too. So it just goes to show you that he and I are a good match for each other, because we never imagined that people would think that. And the truth is that probably the rest of the world probably did imagine that, but we didn't. Maybe that's because we know each other so well and we're very clearly defined in our roles as entrepreneur and employee. And so for the first several years, but the good news is I really had an opportunity as the business became more successful, as I had the opportunity to tell my story, as I had the opportunity to display, yes, I know what I'm talking about in business, and I have experience in this, and it's not my first rodeo, this is my third business, and as I was able to get credibility and share the story, it was amazing. People, my neighbors sometimes, they would see me on a news program or in a magazine article. I didn't know you could do that, or that you ran the business, or that you were smart. Thank you. And so I was very fortunate to get the kind of promotion and press that I got that displayed that I knew what I was talking about. I really wasn't just the person answering the phone or the window dressing or whatever. It was, that gave me, and since that time, once I had that platform to share my story and people heard me talk about business and about what we were doing, and yes, I know supply chain and gross profit and cash flow, and oh, she actually knows this stuff, and I was well prepared. And so once that word started getting out, I have to tell you, it's gotten so much better. And in fact, as my story was able to start going out, it inspired more and more women, and women in construction or in whatever field, just to say, wow, you're doing this and you have these kids and your husband works with you. That's crazy. But it's like I just gave a permission slip. Here's your prescription. Yes, you can start this business. Next. And that just fuels me. It really encourages and inspires me to say, well, if I could have that kind of impact on getting other women to feel more confident about what they were doing, what would happen if I could, like, take over the world or something? Ooh, not literally. But what if I can keep growing my business successfully and continue to have the opportunities to be an example of a woman leading a company in a traditional male-owned field? So While there have been definitely some differences and certainly some challenges, I don't acknowledge them too much. Every now and then someone will say something to me like, well, why are you doing that? Nobody else does it that way. And I'll remind them that if I marched to other people's beat, there's no way I'd be where I am. So that kind of language really falls on a deaf ear with me, because I always march to my own beat and I don't pay much attention. If anything, I probably tend to be more of a nonconformist.
All right, well, I have one more question, and then I'll open it up for questions from the audience here. My last question has to do with networking. So you obviously have invested a lot of time outside of just running your business in participating in and even creating some networks. So the North American Women's Business Organization, you headed the Maryland Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. You've been involved in an organization that advocates for women in public policy on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. What is your recommendation for other women? How can they get involved? Actually, not just women, other women and men. How can they get involved and be effective networkers and also connectors of different groups?
You know, I have to share a story, and you haven't heard this before, Lila, because it just reminded me of this. So when I first started my business, I went to a business conference, and this was actually, it was the Small Business Administration had a big conference where they had workshops, how to do business, how to grow your business, all this stuff. And it was the first year I'd started my construction company. And I met this woman that had a construction company, and she was a first generation in the United States, Mexican American, and she had 3 younger brothers and her parents, and they had all worked in California in picking produce in the fields. All of them worked side by side, and she was very smart and very determined to change her family's course. And so she worked hard and went to college, got a college degree in construction, and was able to help lift her family into a much better position and put her brothers through college, and they started their own companies. And so I met this woman, and I was inspired by her, and she was probably 10 years ahead of me with her business. And as we connected, she took me under her wing, and from the day I met her, she immediately started teaching me. And what she started teaching me was networking. And so she dragged me along, and she said, come on, we're going to Capitol Hill tomorrow because we're testifying at the Small Business Committee so that we can have better opportunities for federal contracting. This is day 2. I just met this woman. Come on. And so she drags me over there, and I'm sitting in Congress going, I can't believe I'm here. Like, I just met this woman. She's taking me with her. She's introducing me to a whole different world that I hadn't even thought about in terms of advocacy and public policy. And then the next day, she's taking me with her to meet some of her clients. And I want to introduce you to Theresa. I just met this woman, and you talk about a role model and a mentor. So she's taking me to these places. Well, sometimes at these conferences, they'll have a big gala awards event. You know, everybody's dressed up nice. Well, guess what? The very important people sit in the front. My friend Olga taught me how to always go to the front, because that's where the smart people, the decision makers, and the successful people are. And you know, it was a little embarrassing at first, and I said, okay, I'll play along, because she would show me, look, the tables aren't full, and there'd be round tables with like maybe 10 people around them, and there'd always be an extra seat. And it would be, we call them a muckety-muck, you know, someone very important. And so she started teaching me how to go to the front and just pretend you belong there. Just pretend. And so, you know, you had to just kind of go, oh yes, is this seat taken? And I would just park myself. Well, she did that with me several times, and next thing you know, I knew these people, and they assumed that I belonged there. And so it was quite fascinating to start networking and creating this group of people that I knew, and then I met them at the next conference and the next conference, and so they automatically I had just started my business, didn't have any employees yet. And because I was in these circles, I became friends with these people. And so it was easy when I needed something. Hey, I am looking for a point of contact in this agency. Do you know anybody? Oh, Theresa, yes. So that was my first introduction to how powerful networking can be. And I'm telling you, listen, I did nothing illegal, right? But I had to, we joke, we say put on your big girl panties. I had to put on my big girl pants and just go and act as if I belonged there. And that was my first introduction to networking. After that, I found that it was really important to create networks that served different purposes. So I needed a network in my community to help with my children when I was going to be late to get them at the bus stop, right? I needed a community of supporters that was going to help me find the right service providers for my business. I needed a network that could help me find business. I needed someplace where I could just go let my hair down and say, you know what, I had a terrible day and I just don't want to go back tomorrow. I needed that network too. I needed the network of women that we could complain about our children and our husband, right? And feel safe, that it was confidential, that it was an appropriate place to share that with. But I also needed some place where I could share my successes and my victories and not have people feeling envious or jealous, or once I told them how successful I'd just gotten a contract that they were saying, hey, can you give me some of that? So the key was to develop appropriate networks and understanding that in most of those networks, it's about giving and taking, taking and giving. You have to be in a position where you're ready to listen, you're ready to share, but you're also willing to give.